Las Vegas Sayadaw. The 4 kinds of action. There are 16 kinds of kama in terms of detail, but only 4 kinds in terms of groups. Kama means action, right? It is cetana, or volition. Among the 52 types of mental factors, what's cetana? It is volition, or kama. Kama is cetana, and cetana is kama. So here, we're talking about 4 kinds of action. With respect to function, and in terms of groups, we have 4 kinds of kama. But also try to remember the 16 kinds of kama. This is very important. So by way of function, there are 4 kinds of kama. 1. Janaka kama. Janaka kama is reproductive kama. This kama is very important. Every birth is conditioned by past good or bad kama. It predominates at the moment of death. Before we die, the kama of what we've done lately or previously will produce our rebirth consciousness. As such, this Janaka kama, this reproductive kama, is very important. When wholesome or unwholesome consciousness arises, it is associated with different mental factors that arise at the same time. Among those mental factors is satana, which we call kama. This wholesome or unwholesome consciousness functions like a general manager. It's like our job, right? We have a general manager who directs where we need to go. Kama is like a general manager who sends us somewhere. So if we do something bad, where do we go? To a woeful state. Or if we do something meritorious, we go to the human realm, or perhaps heaven. If we gain jhana, we go to the Brahma realm. It depends on our kama. Our director, kama, sends us to a plane to be reborn. It depends on our kama. If we used to do demeritorious things, perhaps we go to a woeful state. Our rebirth consciousness is santirana akusala vipaka. We cannot choose that. There's no choice for us. It depends on our kama. When we die from this human world, we have to be reborn in the appropriate realm, maybe an unhappy plane, or maybe the human realm, or perhaps a celestial realm. It depends on our reproductive kama. With respect to reproductive kama, there are 29 types of consciousness that are called kama. Please remember this. What are the 29 types? They are the 12 types of unwholesome consciousness, the 98 process-freed, 8 types of sense sphere wholesome consciousness, the 5 types of form sphere wholesome consciousness, and the 4 types of formless sphere wholesome consciousness. These 29 types of consciousness are called kama. This is exactly what kama is. What about the 4 types of supramundane consciousness, though? That's not kama. Why? In terms of magga and phala, there are 8 types of consciousness, right? But they are not regarded as kama because they tend to eradicate the root of kama. After all, they're supramundane, right? Kama conditions rebirth, yet Sottapatti Magga and Phala cannot produce kama for rebirth. That's why only the aforementioned 29 types of consciousness are called kama. Kama conditions future birth. It determines the state of a person in the subsequent life. Unwholesome consciousness will condition a woeful state. What about sense sphere wholesome consciousness? It will condition the human realm or a celestial realm, right? The 5 types of form sphere wholesome consciousness condition the Brahma finite material realms, and the 4 types of formless sphere wholesome consciousness condition the formless realms. So rebirth depends on kama as a director. 2. Upatambhana kama. This is supportive kama. I'll give you some examples to help you understand this type of kama. Let's start with a being reborn in a woeful state, such as an animal. Why did they become an animal? Who sent them to be reborn as an animal? Their kama. What kind of kama? Janaka. Or reproductive kama. What kama was that? Unwholesome consciousness. Why was it unwholesome? Because of lobha, dosa, and moha. So Janaka kama sends them to a woeful state to become an animal. Then, supportive kama supports their suffering as an animal in that plane. In other words, What they've done in a previous life, will, make them suffer for a long time in that life. Upatambhana Kama supports Janaka Kama by making them feel pain or sorrow. What about a human being? Why did they become human? Because of Janaka Kama. What Kama was that? Sense sphere wholesome consciousness. In other words, they'd previously done meritorious deeds via one of these types of wholesome consciousness. Perhaps it was done with a pleasurable feeling or an indifferent feeling, maybe with knowledge or without knowledge, and it may have been 99 Las Vegas Sayadaw prompted or unprompted. So we did meritorious deeds and were reborn as human beings. Was this good karma or bad karma? It was good reproductive karma. Then, supportive karma gave us good health or good friends, a good family, a good business, good knowledge or education, and perhaps made us happy. This good supportive karma supported our reproductive karma and made us happy. Again, if your rebirth was unwholesome, then the supportive karma will cause you to suffer for a long time. On the other hand, if your rebirth was wholesome, then the supportive karma will bring you happiness for a long time. 3. Upapilaka Kama. This is obstructive karma. Let's look at an animal. Reproductive karma causes a being to be reborn as an animal. This is because of their unwholesome consciousness. That animal then experiences suffering, pain, and sorrow because of their supportive karma. But perhaps that animal did meritorious things in their previous life. This good karma, this obstructive karma, changes the situation. It obstructs the unwholesome reproductive karma, interrupts it, and makes it weaker. How about an example? Reproductive karma functioned by causing a being to be reborn as an animal. Let's say it was a domestic animal, and his family didn't take good care of him. But then maybe he was later adopted by a kind person who took better care of him, fed him well, let him sleep soundly, and made his life comfortable. Why would this happen? Because that animal's good karma from a previous life obstructed its reproductive karma, thus giving it a relatively good life. Some animals lead better lives than human beings, right? Why did they become an animal? Reproductive karma, right? But now, obstructive karma, their good karma from a previous life, obstructs the bad reproductive karma, and the animal has a good family who takes care of it, feeds it well, makes it comfortable, and its life is better than the lives of some human beings. So good karma can obstruct bad karma and become good. I once talked to a gentleman who said to me, "After I die, I want to be reborn as an American dog." How about you? Some pets have pretty comfortable lives, right? Some people take care of their pets very well. 100 process-freed. The pets don't have to worry about anything. They even get to sleep in the bed with their owners sometimes. This is because of their obstructive karma. Q. Can you have a good rebirth but have obstructive karma that stops it and gives you a negative experience? Yes. Because of good reproductive karma, we become a human being. Our supportive karma gives us good health and makes us happy. But then, obstructive karma, the bad karma from a previous life, can affect our good karma. We might lose our business, our family, or we might feel unhappy, pain, sorrow, or depression. This is because of our obstructive karma. Our obstructive karma obstructs our good karma. This means that our bad karma obstructs our good reproductive karma. 4. Upagataka karma. This is destructive karma. This karma is more effective than the previous two, supportive karma and obstructive karma. It not only obstructs, it destroys. Depending on the karma, it could destroy either good karma or bad karma. Let's start by using an animal as an example once again. An animal's reproductive karma is bad, right? Its unwholesome reproductive karma caused it to become an animal. Then, its supportive karma caused it to feel pain and to have a terrible, unhappy life. And then, its obstructive karma changes the circumstances and brings comfort and happiness to its life. Perhaps a stray dog was taken in by a loving person who fed it well and treated it kindly. Let's say that dog stayed with that nice person for many, many years. During those years, perhaps the person taught the dog to pay respect to a monk or to a Buddha statue. We see this sometimes in Buddhist families, where they'll teach their pets to bow to monks. What's the animal's consciousness when it does that? It's wholesome consciousness. This wholesome consciousness can act as destructive karma. It can destroy their bad karma, and when that animal dies, it may be reborn as a human being or perhaps even an angel or god. 101 Las Vegas, Sayadaw. This is destructive karma. It destroys bad reproductive karma, causing an animal, as in this example, to become a human or celestial being in the next life. Let's look at human beings now. A human being's reproductive karma is good karma, right? It's wholesome karma. Wholesome reproductive karma made that being a human being. Supportive karma maybe gives the person in our example 20 or 30 or 40 good years of life. But later on, obstructive karma, their bad actions in a previous life, gives results such as poor health, an accident, becoming disabled, or losing their business, their friends or loved ones. This obstructive karma obstructs their supportive karma, and now they feel depressed, unhappy, and die. If we die unhappy, what is that? It is dosa, unwholesome consciousness. Then, we're reborn in a woeful state, right? See? Ultimately, destructive karma destroyed reproductive karma and led to rebirth in a woeful state. People will sometimes say things like, "Oh, we do good things, but why don't we see the good results of those things?" Or they might say, "That's a bad person. Why are they so successful and prosperous?" It's because of karma. Right now, we can only see the present and what we're doing here, but we don't know what we, or others, have done in previous lives. Q. If someone experiences something like what you're describing, say, everything in their life goes bad, and they realize that it's bad karma catching up with them, so they accept it and try to get through it, can the momentum of that bad karma be turned around? Yes, it can become good. It will depend on our karma. Let's say our previous bad karma gave us results. If we suffer about it and don't do anything about it, that's not good. When we know our bad karma is causing us to suffer, we should try to do good things. When we do good karma, it begins to increase, and our bad karma begins to weaken. In other words, we can change our karma. Karma is action, right? When we take good physical, verbal, and mental action, perhaps we practice generosity, cultivate morality, or work on our meditation, i.e., we do something meritorious. Our supportive karma becomes stronger. When it does, it won't allow obstructive or destructive karma to come to us. We can do this. 102 Process Freed. Some people are very poor. Why? Because their reproductive karma was not good. Perhaps, in their previous lives they did meritorious things, but with an indifferent feeling, or without knowledge. Or perhaps they required prompting. Even though they were reborn as a human being, they were very poor because of the low level of their wholesome consciousness. Their supportive karma is not very strong. But then, maybe their obstructive karma from a previous life gives its results. Maybe they hit the jackpot, right? This obstructive karma obstructs their weak karma, and they now become a millionaire. Think about all of this. It all depends on our karma. It depends on our own actions. So try to do good physical actions. Pay respect to those deserving respect. Do good things for other people. This is physical action. When we do chanting, or give good advice to others, say words of loving kindness or compassion for others, this is verbal action. When we try to be good and think good thoughts, when we sit in meditation and practice samatha or vipassana, it's mental action. Try to develop these every day, then we won't have to worry about the future. Try to be good in this present life, on this present day. Okay? Time's up for today. I know a lot of you are interested in meditation. When we eventually get to the last chapter, which is very wonderful, we'll be talking especially about meditation, and only meditation. Also, Sunday of next week is the Buddha's birthday, or Visakha Puja. I'd like to invite all of you to participate in a ceremony that day. It's a very special day in Buddhism. It's on the full moon day of May every year. It commemorates his birthday, the day he gained enlightenment, and the day he passed away, all on the same day. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Today is the 9th of May, 1998. Last week, we discussed the 31 planes of existence. Among them is Asannyasata, the realm of mindless beings, right? Beings in this realm have only matter, but no mind. We also talked about the 4 Arupavakara planes, right? Beings in these 4 planes have only mind, no matter. Beings in the remaining 26 planes have mind and matter. We also talked about the 4 woeful states. Beings in those 4 planes, as well as beings in the realm of mindless beings. So, beings in 103 Las Vegas Sayadaw, these 5 planes, are all Putujana. Only worldlings can live in these 5 planes. No Ariyanas live in the woeful states. It's the same in Asannyasata. Only worldlings live there. We also talked about the 5 pure abodes, right? In these 5 planes there are only noble persons, or Aryans. Specifically, there are only non-returners and arahants. So the 5 Suddhavaisa have only Aryans. Today we will continue to discuss Kama. Last week, we talked about Kama in terms of function. Reproductive Kama, supportive Kama, obstructive Kama, and destructive Kama. I would like to give you another example to make it clear. Some people are reborn into rich families, right? Perhaps even a noble family. What kind of reproductive Kama is that? Wholesome, or kusala. It's good Kama. This makes the person be reborn in a rich family. Because they are born into a rich family, they have opportunities to learn, study, acquire a good education, and perhaps even multiple college degrees. They in turn may become a successful business person and become wealthy. But let's say they get greedy and then decide to kill their parents to get their hands on the parents' wealth. Why would they do that? Obstructive Kama. After they kill their parents, the police come, arrest them, and put them in jail. Maybe they are tortured by the detectives who are investigating the case. The rich man now suffers. His supportive Kama gave him a good education and led him to be a successful businessman. This Kama supported his reproductive Kama. But it's because of his obstructive Kama that he committed the crime and now suffers because of it. The obstructive Kama obstructs the good reproductive Kama and the supportive Kama, and now he suffers. Then, because he killed his parents, the judge sentences him to death or to jail for a very long time. When the man dies, where will he go? He will go to hell. He will be reborn in a woeful state. This is because of destructive Kama. It's worse than obstructive Kama. It makes him go to hell, where he will suffer more than in jail in the human world. So this is an example of reproductive, supportive, obstructive, and destructive Kama. Now, we'll go to the second group, which deals with the order in which the effects of Kama take place. Or we can call it the order of ripening giving results. 104 Process freed. The order of ripening Kama giving results. This is by order. 1 by 1. What Kama will give results first, and what gives results later. It is the order of ripening giving results. 1. In Pali, it's called Garuka Kama, or weighty, serious Kama. 2. Usana Kama, or proximate death proximate Kama. Before the dying moment, this Kama gives results. That's why we call it death proximate Kama. 3. Habitual Kama, or Asana Kama. 4. Katata. Reserve Kama. If you cannot memorize the Pali, it's okay to just remember the English: weighty, proximate, habitual, and reserve Kama. Weighty Kama. This type of Kama will produce its results in this life or in the next life for certain. It will definitely give its results. For example, a person who kills his mother, father, or an arahant, or who wounds a Buddha, or creates a schism in the Sangha community, will definitely go to hell in the next life. In other words, If a person commits one of these 5 great offenses, he will go to hell. This is weighty karma, it's serious karma. There are 5 of these great offenses, right? A person who commits one of them will definitely be reborn in hell. We have 2 kinds of weighty karma, wholesome weighty karma and unwholesome weighty karma. We just described unwholesome weighty karma, right? As for wholesome weighty karma, if we practice samatha, tranquility meditation, and gain the first jhana, in the next life we'll be reborn in the first jhana plane. How many realms are there in that plane? 3, right? This jhana is wholesome weighty karma. If we gain the first jhana, we will be reborn in one of those first 3 jhana realms. This is for sure. If we gain the second or third jhana, either one, then we'll be reborn in the second jhana plane. We'll be reborn in one of the 105 Las Vegas Sayadaw realms within that plane. If we gain the 4th jhana, we will be reborn in one of the realms in the 3rd jhana plane. If we are an anagami, non-returner, and we gain the 5th jhana, we will be reborn in one of the 5 realms of the pure abodes. It will depend on our mental faculties, right? If we are not a non-returner, but are instead a worldling, a stream enterer, or a once-returner, and we gain the 5th jhana, where will we be reborn? In the 4th jhana plane, either Vehapala and Asanyasata. To be clear, only Putu jhana can be reborn in Asanyasata. On what plane do we have to be reborn after we die? It will depend on our karma. We are talking here about weighty karma. But if you lose your jhana before you die, you cannot be reborn in these planes. We've been talking about wholesome weighty karma. Let's talk more about unwholesome weighty karma. I mentioned wounding a Buddha being one of the 5 great offenses, right? The Buddha's first cousin Devadatta tried to kill him many times. On one of those occasions, the Buddha was walking to and fro near the base of a mountain when Devadatta pushed a rock down the slope in an attempt to kill him. Only a small piece of rock actually struck the Buddha, causing him to be wounded. A Buddha is very special though. No one can harm a Buddha or make blood flow from his body. So when the Buddha was struck by the small rock, he was merely bruised. His doctor, Javaka, later did a procedure to remove the Buddha's internal bleeding. So wounding a Buddha is one kind of unwholesome weighty karma. Another kind of unwholesome weighty karma is creating a schism in the Sangha community. This means dividing the community through disharmony. As it pertains to unwholesome weighty karma, only monks can create schisms in the Sangha community. Following our monastic code, twice a month we meet in the ordination hall and perform Sangha Kama to reaffirm the principles of community harmony. Devadatta created a schism in the community in his day, separating monks into this group and that group. It caused significant problems, and as such is the biggest offense of the 5. The Buddha said that whoever commits a schism in the Sangha community commits an offense greater than wounding a Buddha. He said that whoever wounds a Buddha commits an offense greater than killing an arahant. Whoever kills an arahant commits an offense greater than killing their mother. The Buddha also said that whoever kills their mother commits an offense greater than killing their father. 106 Process freed. These 5 offenses are called serious karma, or great deed karma. Whoever commits one of these 5 offenses will definitely be reborn in hell. No matter how many donations a person makes, he could offer money to build thousands of schools, hospitals, temples, or pagodas, or he could donate billions of dollars to help people around the world. Committing one of these 5 offenses will not help him be reborn as a human being. This great deed karma is an obstacle to all good karma. Whoever commits it will go to hell in the next existence, for sure. What about if we compare wholesome great deed karma to unwholesome great deed karma? Let's talk about Devadatta again. There was a time when he had been able to gain jhana. He had psychic power, but he later lost his jhana and ended up wounding the Buddha and creating a schism in the Sangha. After he died, he went to hell. See that? Unwholesome weighty karma is greater and more powerful than wholesome weighty karma. Shortly before Devadatta died, he thought about how he'd lost his jhana and then committed these atrocious deeds. He felt terrible regret and decided that he wanted to visit the Buddha to pay him homage. Devadatta let his followers carry him to the Buddha so that he could pay his respects, but before he reached the Buddha's temple, a crack in the earth formed, and Devadatta was swallowed down to hell. Have you ever heard this story? It's a story about weighty karma, which will produce its results in this life, or in the next life for certain. We've been talking about unwholesome weighty karma, right? What about wholesome weighty karma? There are also stories about this from the time of the Buddha. One of them illustrates how a poor man and a poor family became the richest family in just a single day. In order for such a thing to happen, 4 causes or conditions must be fulfilled. 1. We made a donation to an anagami or an arahant. 2. The donation was made after the anagami or arahant emerged from sustained attainment of cessation, Nirodha Samapatti. This means that for 7 days there was no consciousness, no mental factors, and no action. 3. The items offered to the anagami or arahant after he emerged from Nirodha Samapatti had been owned lawfully, justly, 107, Las Vegas Sayadaw, fairly and purely. In other words, we didn't steal the things that we offered. 4. The items offered under the first 3 conditions were made with great volition. This means that we were very happy before we made the donation, while making the donation, and after making the donation. In other words, we felt very, very happy about making the donation. This is called great volition. If these 4 causes or conditions are fulfilled, it's incredible what you can receive in just a day or a week. You can become a very wealthy person. Like today, for example, you could hit the $40 million California lottery. It's possible. But these 4 conditions must be met. If you lack any of them, you won't get the result. You need all 4. This is wholesome weighty karma producing its results in this life. It's possible for this to happen, though it may be difficult. After all, it's difficult to find an anagami or an arahant. Plus, they will have needed to have emerged from Nirodha Samapatti, be offered items purely and lawfully, and with great happiness. Going back to unwholesome weighty karma, we should also know about niyata micchaditi, permanent skepticism, or permanent wrong view. Permanent skepticism is another kind of great deed karma. Niyata means permanent, and micchaditi means wrong view. I'll give you illustrations of niyata micchaditi. Asterisk. We do almsgiving and make donations every day. We make offerings to noble persons and monks. We believe that this is a wholesome and good thing to do. But a person with niyata micchaditi believes that there's no consequence of almsgiving. He believes that if you offer something to a monk, it's just wasting your property. They strongly believe that it's just a waste of your property. Asterisk. We feed our guests and visitors. We give gifts to others. But a person with niyata micchaditi believes that there's no consequence of making sacrifices or giving gifts. They think it's useless. They think that whether it's a good act 108 process freed or a bad act, it makes no difference since there is no consequence. Asterisk. We believe that we can have a possible rebirth in the human world if we do meritorious things before we die. But a person with niyata micchaditi does not believe that this world exists. Nor does he believe that other worlds exist. Although we believe that we'll be reborn in a good plane if we do good things, and in a bad plane if we do bad things. This type of person doesn't believe in any other worlds, planes or realms. He doesn't believe in hell or heaven. He feels that he can do whatever he wants to do. Asterisk. According to Buddhism, we have to take care of and support our parents and show them appropriate respect because they were our first teachers. But a person with niyata micchaditi believes that it makes no difference how you treat your parents. He believes there are no consequences. Nowadays, some people feel that they don't have to support or respect their parents because they were only born as a product of their parents' sexual enjoyment. This is wrong view. Asterisk. A person with niyata micchaditi believes that there are no results for the good or evil things we do. They even believe that there's no retribution for killing one's parents. Asterisk. A person with niyata micchaditi believes that there is no rebirth after death. They believe that there is no rebirth in any plane after a human being passes away. They just believe that life is finished. Asterisk. A person with Niyata Mikadithi believes that there are no monks who practice meditation, have established themselves on the noble path, and are accomplished in good practice. This means that they don't believe that any monk has attained enlightenment as a result of his good practice. They believe that no such monk exists. 109 Las Vegas Sayadaw ***. A person with Niyata Mikadithi believes that no one can expound on this or other worlds. In other words, they believe that no one can explain these things with true and direct knowledge after having gained enlightenment by oneself. We're talking here about direct knowledge acquired by one's own effort. In the time of the Buddha, he and his chief disciples knew about our world, other worlds, and about how our rebirth is conditioned by our karma. They could expound upon these things very well, but a Niyata Mikadithi person doesn't believe any of that. He doesn't believe that anyone can expound upon this or other worlds via true direct knowledge acquired by one's own effort. See? A Niyata Mikadithi person doesn't believe anything. This wrong view is also a kind of weighty karma. It's very strong. After this type of person dies, he will be reborn in a woeful state. Now we'll go to proximate karma, which is very, very important. Proximate karma. We can also call this death proximate karma, because this is what one experiences or remembers immediately before the dying moment. You may remember what you did in a previous life, what you did as a young person in this life, or perhaps what you did very recently. You remember something, and it appears to your view just before the dying moment. We call this proximate karma. In terms of the order of ripening giving results, if there is no weighty karma, that is, there is no jhana, and we haven't committed any great offenses or heinous crimes, then, as we're about to die, this proximate karma will arise and give some result. There are many examples that we can talk about here. Before you die, you will think about or remember something you've done before or are doing right then. This proximate karma will give you a result. In other words, what we've done previously or are doing right then will appear to your view. We call this karma. Maybe it's good or maybe it's bad. It depends. If it's bad karma, let's say you used to kill animals, for example. Even if you did many good things in your life, when you're 110 process-freed about to die, you may think, oh, when I was young, I used to kill animals. You'll think about this, you'll remember it immediately before the dying moment. What kind of karma is that? Unwholesome karma. It becomes proximate karma. You're remembering what you did, right? This is karma. Then, there is karma nimitta, or sign of karma. This means that you see the animals you killed, or perhaps you see the weapon you used to kill them. Your deeds, how you killed them, will appear to your view. We call this karma nimitta, or sign of karma. In that moment, you can't feel any sort of happiness because this karma is unwholesome, right? In that moment, dosa mula chitta arises. It's as if you're killing the animals in that moment. You feel that way. As you do, gati nimitta, or sign of destiny, arises. This means that the place where you will be reborn appears to your mind's view, as if a dream. Only you can see it. Gati nimitta is a sign or symbol of the place where you will be reborn. In this example, we're talking about unwholesome proximate karma, right? You'll see the sign of being reborn in hell. What will you see? Flames, fire, big dogs trying to bite you. You'll see giants, demons holding your body and trying to kill you or keep you captive. You'll see the sign of destiny. And once you die, you'll go right there based upon this proximate karma. If you'll be reborn as an animal, you'll see a forest or a jungle. If you'll be reborn as a hungry ghost or demon, you'll see a forest, the ocean, or a river. This is all unwholesome proximate karma. So please remember, karma, karma nimitta, and gati nimitta. Kama is action, kama nimitta is sign of action, and gati nimitta is sign of destiny. Unwholesome proximate kama will give a result and will be reborn in a woeful state. What about if our proximate kama is wholesome? Even if you've not been a very good person for most of your life, perhaps you did something really good when you were young, such as going to church or the temple, making donations to help others. Just before you die, you may remember doing those meritorious things. You'll think about them and it'll feel as if you're doing them right then, which is wholesome proximate kama. We call this kama. As for kama nimitta, you will see the monks, the nuns, or the meditators where you used to practice generosity. You will see the money you donated, or perhaps the robes or the food you offered. You'll see the temple or the pagoda and will feel very happy in that moment. It'll feel as if you're doing these things right then. These images will appear to your 111 Las Vegas Sayadaw mind. This is kama nimitta, or sign of kama. You'll see these things and feel very happy. Then, gati nimitta will appear to your mind's view as if a dream. Only you will see it. What will you see? Because of this wholesome proximate kama, if you will be reborn as a human being again, your gati nimitta will display the clothing you will wear. You'll see your mother's womb. You'll see the house where you will live. Then you will die and be reborn as a human being. If you will be reborn in heaven, you'll see a lot of angels or gods dressed very well, and you'll see gardens. After you die, you'll be reborn in heaven. This is proximate kama. It will give results. It is very important. If there is no weighty kama, then this proximate kama will arise and give results. We should understand all of this and be ready when our time for death comes. Let's talk a bit about some of the Buddhist scriptures that mention this. The Buddha taught us how to sit, sleep, walk, eat, and even how to prepare for death. He explained everything. In the time of the Buddha, there was a gentleman named Dhammaka. He listened to the Dhamma every day, he practiced meditation, and he eventually gained enlightenment. He did meritorious things every day. When he became seriously ill, he thought, "Oh, I might die today. I'd like to hear the Dhamma from the Buddha or his disciples." His family then went to the temple and invited monks to come to Dhammaka's house to chant for him and to allow him to listen to and talk about the Dhamma. After the monks came and began chanting for him, he just closed his eyes and listened, listening. He was already a stream enterer, and he felt very happy as he listened to their chanting. Before he died, angels or gods from the 6 heavens came to Dhammaka and said, "O Dhammaka, come stay with us in heaven." They'd brought along a chariot to bring him back with them, but he said, "Wait." After all, the monks were still chanting, and he was appreciating the opportunity to listen to them. But the monks thought that Dhammaka had said wait, because he didn't want to listen anymore, so they stopped chanting. As the monks stopped chanting, Dhammaka opened his eyes and said, "Why did you stop chanting? I was still listening to your Dhamma." The monks replied, "Why did you say for us to stop?" Dhammaka said, "No, I didn't mean that. I was asking the angels to wait before taking me to heaven, because I was listening to your Dhamma." 1:1:2. Process freed. The monks were in disbelief over what Dhammaka was saying about the angels coming with their chariot, so Dhammaka said, "If you don't believe it, please give me a garland." He then asked the angels what the best heavenly realm was. They told him that it was Tusita, because that's where most bodhisattvas live. Dhammaka then threw the garland in the air, and it caught on the chariot suspended above him. The monk saw only the flowers floating magically in the sky. Then Dhammaka died and was reborn in heaven. So what did Dhammaka see in this story? Gati nimitta, right? There was kama nimitta, and gati nimitta. Before he died, he saw these things. Then he died and was reborn in heaven. Another story talks about a gentleman who was a hunter for about 50 years. His son was a monk who lived in the jungle and practiced meditation. After the man grew old and retired from being a hunter, he became a monk and went to live with his son. He tried to practice meditation, but could not gain good concentration. The man eventually became seriously ill. One day, before he died, what did he see? He saw what he'd done over the whole of his life. He'd been a hunter, right? He used to kill animals every day, so before he died, a picture of his actions appeared to his mind. He thought, oh, I spent most of my life killing animals. As he reflected on this, he was very unhappy. This is kama. Then, he saw the weapons he'd used to kill the animals. He saw the methods that he'd used to kill them. These things appeared to him as if a movie. This is kama nimitta. And then, he saw fire, flames, dogs, giants. He was afraid. Oh, what can I do? Please help me, son. Hearing his father, the son thought, I'm a monk. I'm not supposed to let my father suffer like this. I need to help him, because this gati nimitta has appeared. The son knew what his father was experiencing, so he called someone to help bring his father to a nearby pagoda. The son said to his father, Here is a pagoda, father. Don't think about anything else. Think only of flowers, water, fruit, making donations to the Buddha. He encouraged his father to change the way he was thinking as death approached. The son handed him flowers and food and encouraged him to offer them to the pagoda. He reminded his father to reflect on how he had been practicing meditation every day. As the father followed his son's advice, the bad sign of destiny disappeared, and a good gati nimitta appeared in its place. What did the 113 Las Vegas Sayadaw man see? He saw many angels coming to him. He heard the angels ask him to stay with them, so he then said to his son that he was leaving. The younger monk was very happy, because he knew that his father's gati nimitta had changed. He knew that his father would now go to heaven instead of hell. And just then, his father died. These stories illustrate how very important our thoughts just before death are. What we do just before we die is very, very important. We should have some good friend with us before we die. Children and grandchildren come to cry at our deathbed, but that's no good. Don't let them do that. It's better to stay away from them and instead have a good friend by your side. Your good friend can do chanting or play Dhamma talks. Your good friend can remind you to think of nothing else but the Dhamma. He can encourage you to try to forget all the bad things you've done and to instead remember all the good and meritorious things you've done your whole life. Did you make donations to a temple, a church, a hospital, a school? Did you observe the 5 precepts? Did you sometimes observe 8 precepts? Did you chanting regularly? And especially, did you sit in meditation every day? These are all meritorious things. You don't have to worry or think about anything else. A good friend keeps reminding you to reflect only upon these things. Our mind and body are impermanent. As long as we are subject to rebirth, we must experience decay and disease. This is the nature of our lives. As I share this Dhamma with you, just listen, listening. At the moment of your death, you can listen to Dhamma too. This is good, proximate kama. You'll remember the good things you've done in your life. You'll remember that you made donations, you chanted, and you sat in meditation. When your time to die comes, think only of these things. This is kama. What kind? Wholesome kama. As you do, you'll see your contributions and offerings to monks, priests, churches, temples, schools, hospitals. You'll see this. This is kama nimitta. And with this kind of kama nimitta, you won't have to worry about gati nimitta. If you've gained enlightenment, you will certainly become at least a human being or an angel. All of this is because of this proximate kama. But I want to tell you the best thing you can do to prepare for death. We practice meditation every day, right? As you are about to die, don't think about anything. Try to forget everything. Don't think about bad things you've done. Instead, try to concentrate on your body. As you normally do in meditation, focus on the rising and falling of your abdomen 114 process freed, or on breathing in and breathing out. Or you can focus on sensations in your body. Whatever happens in your body, just follow the sensations and know what you are feeling. We practice meditation and learn to be patient even in the face of serious pain, right? We observe our mind and focus on the pain until it is gone. If we've practiced like this for a long time, we don't care about what happens as death approaches. After all, we're used to pain. We concentrate on our primary object of meditation. If there's no pain, we concentrate on breathing in and breathing out, or on the abdomen rising and falling. If there is pain, we focus on the pain. If you feel any sensations in the body, just observe the sensations. As you do, you'll see impermanence. Just arising and disappearing, arising and going away. And just before death, what will happen? Proximate comma. See? It's not what we've done in the past. Instead, in this present moment, you are concentrated, and this death proximate comma will arise. The Buddha said, before you die, before cutie consciousness, death consciousness arises, you could gain enlightenment, you could become a stream enterer, or even an arahant. See? The dying moment is very important. But, instead, if you spend the dying moment thinking about your family, or worrying about others, that's not good. We shouldn't do that. You don't have to worry about anyone as you're dying. No amount of worrying will help them. If you worry about your family, what will happen to you? What about if you worry about your cat or your dog? This is very important. What if you think, who will feed my cat? Who will take care of my family? If you think like that, then you're attached. If you're attached to your cat or your dog, you might be reborn as a cat or a dog. Or if you're attached to your house or your family, you may be reborn as a hungry ghost. Then what happens? Then your family will have to invite a priest or a monk to chant and make you, the ghost, go away. See, attachment is a problem. You shouldn't be attached to your property or to your family. Some people are attached to their body too. As they lie dying, they think, oh no, I'm about to die. You can't overcome this situation. You are going to die. But if you're attached to your body, you'll feel unhappy. This is dosa, right? Dosa makes you go to hell. Attachment, lobha, makes you become a hungry ghost. And moha? If your mind just wanders as you die, daydreaming, restless, doubting, you go to the animal kingdom. 115. Las Vegas Sayadaw. Be careful as you're dying. Don't let attachment, hatred, or delusion arise in your mind. To stop attachment, hatred, and delusion, it is okay to think about the good things you've done. But the best thing is to concentrate your mind on your body. Continue to do the very thing we practice now, day after day. Just concentrate. If your mind goes out, just know, going out. Then return your attention to your primary object. As you concentrate your mind in that way, there is no attachment to anyone or anything, including your body. If you do that as you're dying, you can become a stream enterer, a once-returner, a non-returner, or perhaps even an arahant. This is the best thing to do as you prepare to die. Even if you don't have a good friend with you, you'll be fine. What will happen if you depend on a friend, a monk or priest, but they're unavailable as you die? See? You can't depend on anyone. Instead, depend upon your mind, your actions, and your good thoughts. Sometimes I feel such pity when I hear a very elderly person talk as they get close to dying. They cry out, "Call my son. I want to see my grandchildren. I want to talk to my kids." This is not good. Their time is short. They may die in just a few minutes, and they're busy worrying about other people. We shouldn't do that. Instead, we can practice meditation before we die and potentially gain enlightenment. And if we gain enlightenment before we die, where will we go? Not to a woeful state, right? And if we gain jhana, we'll go to the Brahma realms, right? The Buddha said that we should spend our lives doing as much good as we can. Then, before we die, We should concentrate our mind on our body, our feelings, on the mind, and on Dhamma. If we do, we can gain enlightenment before we die. And even if we don't gain enlightenment before we die, we don't have to worry because we'll be reborn as an angel in heaven. Once we do, we could gain enlightenment right away anyway. See, spontaneously reborn angels are not like us. We have to stay in our mother's womb for 9 months, right? But angels have bodies that are very pure and clean. They can gain enlightenment before they even realize they're an angel. You can become enlightened and then realize, oh, I've become an angel, or a Brahma. Even if you don't gain enlightenment right away in your new life in the higher realms, the meritorious things you did in your past life, including your efforts to contemplate your primary object day in and day out, will create the conditions for you to meet other meditators, teachers, 116 process-freed, or good friends in that new life. They will remind you, when you were a human being, you practiced meditation. Keep practicing. They will share just a few words of reminder and encouragement. You will continue the practice, and you can gain enlightenment. They have holy days 4 days a month in heaven, just like we have here. Groups of beings will come together to listen to the Dhamma. Those who have already gained enlightenment will come to offer meditation instruction. See? We have a good chance to gain enlightenment in the next life too. Think about the value of your life. Take advantage of this present opportunity to practice meditation. Even if you can't gain enlightenment in this life, there is the opportunity in the next life. So how important is the moment before we die? Think about kama, kama nimitta, and gati nimitta. This is proximate kama, habitual kama, usina kama, or habitual kama. This refers to that which one habitually performs or recollects every day. In other words, it's the good or bad things we do or think about every day. For instance, what have we done today? We got up in the morning, we did chanting, we sat in meditation, and we studied and listened to the Dhamma. See? We might have also made an offering or donation to the temple. These are good things. We may have done these good things physically, verbally, or mentally. We may have also radiated loving kindness or transferred our good merit, so that everyone could be happy. This is habitual kama. Right now, you may be wondering why, in ordering of ripening giving results, does proximate kama come before habitual kama? Normally, you'd think that habitual kama should be more powerful than proximate kama. And yet proximate kama gives results first. If there is no proximate kama when we die, then habitual kama will give its results. The things we used to do every day will give their results. Let's use an example to make this easy to understand. When we have a big ceremony in the monastery, perhaps hundreds of people will come. Because the building is so full of people and activity, it's easier for the stronger or younger people to find a good seat up close to the front. Why might they get there? Because they are faster or stronger than the weaker or the elderly. 117. Las Vegas Sayadaw. An old woman cannot move quickly, right? Compared to a strong young man, an old lady moves slowly. A young man or young woman comes here easily and quickly finds a suitable seat up close to the front. But the old lady comes late, maybe last. She can't move quickly like the others, so where does she have to sit? Near the door. Why? Because there's no place left for her to sit up close. She's very old. Right? She has arrived late because she moves so slowly. But what happens when the ceremony is finished? Our ceremony is done, so all of you can now leave. Who goes first? The old lady has a good chance to leave first. Because she's closest to the door, she goes first. Proximate kama is like the old lady. Because she's close to the door, she gets to her car first. She is like proximate kama, and young people are like habitual kama. What this means is that, if before we die the object appearing to us is very powerful, then it will give results in the next life. This is proximate kama. Despite all the good things you've done over the course of your life, If you remember one bad thing you did as you die, this proximate karma will give results. That's bad karma, right? Remember karma, karma nimitta and gati nimitta. You might go to hell. It's still powerful. Proximate karma should be just 10%, but habitual karma is 90% in giving results. After all, habitual karma is what we've done every day. Before we die, all of these habitual things will usually appear to us. So, in order of ripening giving results, if there's no weighty karma, that is, you don't gain jhana or commit any heinous crimes, and no proximate karma appears to your view as you die, then habitual karma will take place. You're very familiar with the things you've done every day, right? And then, this habitual karma will appear. It may be good karma, or it may be bad karma. It depends. If you used to kill fish or kill pigs every day for many, many years, then this will be your habitual karma. Before you die, you may think about what you killed. You'll see fish, and perhaps the knife you used to kill the fish. There will be karma, karma nimitta, and gati nimitta. You'll go to hell, or perhaps the animal kingdom, the Pitta sphere, or to the host of asuras. On the other hand, if you did good things every day, perhaps you tried to help people, you made donations, you observed precepts, sat in meditation, did chanting or prayed, then this will be your habitual karma. You might think about how you have nothing to worry about as 118 process freed you die. You think, I'm a good person. What I should do, I have already done. That's good karma. You're happy about what you've done. Then karma nimitta, you'll see what you've done. This habitual karma will be very familiar in your mind. You'll see these good deeds in your mind. And then, gati nimitta, or sign of destiny. See? You don't have to worry. Habitual karma will come. Now, katata karma. Reserve karma katata karma is reserve karma. This refers to actions that are done once and forgotten. If there is no weighty karma, no proximate karma, and no habitual karma, then this reserve karma will give results. Reserve karma is like if you didn't do anything special your whole life. Let's use examples. Perhaps you travel somewhere and see a dog or a cat or a bird that is very hungry. You have a piece of cookie and feed it to them. You do this just one time and then forget about it. Then, before you die, if there's no weighty karma, no proximate karma, and no habitual karma, you will remember something you've done just a little bit. This is karma. You'll remember this small thing, and it will give results. This is reserve karma. This is an example of a good action. As for an example of a bad action, perhaps you stole just $1 from your parents when you were 10 years old. Then you forgot about it. But before you die, you might remember having done this small bad thing when you were very young. You'll feel unhappy. It was just $1, but stealing it will give results. This is reserve karma. So a small thing you've done before giving results. This is reserve karma. We've been talking about order of ripening giving results. We've discussed weighty karma, proximate karma, habitual karma, and reserve karma. They will give the results in order. We call this the law of Dhamma, or Dhammaniya. So we've finished two groups, right? We've talked about by way of function and by order of ripening giving results. Now we'll talk with respect to the time of taking effect, or quote, 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 by time of ripening giving results. This is by time. 119 Las Vegas Sayadaw, the time of ripening giving results. We'll start by talking about Dittadhamma Vedaniya karma, or immediately effective karma. Immediately effective karma. This is karma whose effects are experienced in this life. In other words, the karma will give results in this present life, not in the next life. Do you remember how I talked recently about the 4 causes in which a poor family could become a rich family in the course of just a day or a week? This is immediately effective karma. We studied jhana earlier, right? How many jhana will occur if we do something in terms of sense sphere karma? 7. There will be 7 jhana. They may be lobha mula citta, dosa mula citta, or perhaps mohamula citta. They could be sense sphere beautiful jhavana, right? Or they could be sublime wholesome jhavana. We're talking about sense sphere jhavana. 7 times, right? Among these 7, the first jhavana thought moment is the weakest jhavana. What do we see before jhavana? We see manodvarava jhana. In other words, before jhavana arises, there is manodvarava jhana. This is a term referring to mind objects, or mind or thought processes. If we're referring to 5 sense objects, then we use the term votapana. Manodvarava jhana is functional, but jhavana is wholesome or unwholesome. So they're of different kinds, right? Since the first jhavana is not supported, it is very weak. It's a bit like us. When the first Oriental people came to America, it was a new place with no friends and no family. In the same way, this first jhavana is the weakest. This weakest one will give results in this present life, immediately, because it's not strong. So the first jhavana will give results in this present life. This is immediately effective kama. If it does not operate, then it is defunct or ineffective kama. It doesn't give results anymore. This is the first jhavana, right? If it doesn't produce its effect in this present life, then it becomes defunct kama, subsequently effective kama. The second one is upapajavedaniya kama, or subsequently effective kama. This means that it will give results in the next life for sure. For 120 process-freed instance, if you have jhana at the moment of death, then you will be reborn in the Brahma plane. It will give that result. If you kill your parents, you will go to hell in the next life, for sure. This is subsequently effective kama. There are other things that will give results in the next life too. We might call this present life the first life, and the next life the second life. With respect to subsequently effective kama, we are talking about results or effects being given in the second life. Some people did very meritorious things in their previous life, but don't do any good things in this life. Still, they might have a good position at work, with good power. They might have a good family, a good business, and be successful in life. This is because what they'd done in their previous life had an effect in the subsequent life. What they did in the previous life gave results in this life. Now, whatever they do, bad things, in this example, don't affect them. This is because of their previous, subsequently effective kama. We have 7 jhavana, right? In this case, the last jhavana exactly will give the result. It is precisely this 7th jhavana that will give the result as subsequently effective kama. It will give results in the next life, for sure. We're talking here in terms of the time of ripening giving results. Indefinitely effective kama next is apara paryavedaniya kama, or indefinitely effective kama. The first jhavana gives results in this present life, and the 7th jhavana gives results in the next life. But the 5 intermediate jhavana thought moments, that is, those jhavana, except the first and 7th jhavana, may take place at any time. This means that the results might occur from the third life. Again, we call this the first life and the next life the second life, until we attain nibbana. It can give results at any time. According to Buddhism, we believe that whatever we do, good or bad, there will be 7 jhavana that arise. The first jhavana gives results in this present life, the 7th jhavana gives results in the next life, and the 5 intermediate jhavana thought moments will give results any time between the third life until you gain nibbana. If the first or 7th jhavana do not give results in the present or subsequent life, respectively, then they become defunct kama. But we cannot run from the 5 intermediate jhavana. We have to receive this kama, good or bad. 121. Las Vegas Sayadilla. Some people talk about remembering their past life. They say they remember, oh, I was a poor person, a hunter. But they might now reflect, but now I'm the Prime Minister, how come? Think about this. You now know what kind of kama there was. In this example, we're talking about indefinitely effective kama. The person remembered his previous life, but perhaps he couldn't remember the lives before that. Q. So subsequently effective karma can become defunct also? Yes. When it does, it doesn't give results in the next life. So what we've done, even if the first and seventh jhana don't give results, the 5 intermediate jhana thought moments will give results. When? Anytime, indefinitely. Maybe in the 3rd or the 4th or the 5th life. Who knows? Defunct or ineffective karma last. There is ahosi karma, or defunct, ineffective karma. If immediately effective karma does not give results in the present life, it becomes defunct karma. And if subsequently effective karma doesn't give results in the next life, it becomes defunct karma. So we have 4 here. In terms of the time of ripening giving results, we have immediately effective karma, subsequently effective karma, indefinitely effective karma, and defunct karma. We can't discuss these in great detail because karma is very hard to explain, so we discuss it roughly. A Buddha, of course, could talk about this very well. But if we have a rough idea of how karma works, then we can know what we need to do and what we need to avoid doing. We can also know why a person is like this or that, right? You don't have to go to a fortune teller for the answers to life's questions. You can know about yourself and about others. This is very useful for everyone to understand and put into practice, especially as we prepare for death. We don't have to worry about the future. We should try to practice meditation. When we have good, deep concentration, whatever happens to us, we can use that concentration and try to observe our mind and body, and try to realize their characteristics. As we do, our greed, hatred, and delusion will go away, at least temporarily. And, as we 122 process freed continue this practice for many days, months, and years, we'll get familiar with it and our mind will change. We'll change to another person. This is all very, very important, so before we start to talk about the next section, we need to take the time to talk about this. I want to ensure that you understand karma. So do you have any questions in terms of its function, the order of ripening giving results, or the time of ripening giving results? If anyone has any questions about what we've been discussing thus far, I would like to answer them. Q. With defunct karma, does that mean that good karma becomes bad karma, or bad karma becomes good karma? No. Defunct karma means that immediately effective karma and subsequently effective karma, these 2 actions, should produce their effects in this life or the next life, respectively. If they do not function, there's nothing. It doesn't become good to bad or bad to good. Instead, its function is nothing. It's ineffective karma. It doesn't give results. Q. Is that because it's not that important? When we do something meritorious, wholesome consciousness as a jhana does its function. We have 7, right? The first is the weakest one, so it gives results in the present life. If it doesn't have a chance to give results in this life, its function has no effect. That's why we call it ineffective karma. Here, there's no effect. Q. You talked about what happens right before the moment of death. What if someone is sleeping, or there is an accident and they die immediately? Our mind is very fast. In just 1 second, billions of consciousnesses can arise. Even if we die immediately, or if we die while we're sleeping, karma nimitta, and gati nimitta will occur. Then, we will die. This is exactly how it works. Q. I was almost electrocuted when I was a young lady, and as I was holding onto a hot wire, I was thinking, I'm engaged to get married, but now I'll never get married. All of that was going through my mind before I collapsed from the shock. So it does seem like our minds behave like that. 123 Las Vegas Sayadaw. If you use a stick to hit a fly and it dies right away, before it dies karma nimitta and gati nimitta arises in the fly. Then it dies. No one, except for an arahant, can get away from karma nimitta and gati nimitta. Arahants have no gati nimitta, because there's no rebirth. At death, they just concentrate on their mind and body, then disappear and go to supreme bliss. There's no gati nimitta. So all living creatures except arahants experience karma nimitta, and gati nimitta as they die. Q. When an arahant dies, he just dies? It's just nibbana forever? Yes, it's like if you have fire. If the fire goes away, you can't say, "Where'd the fire go?" It just went extinct. It's the same for an arahant. It's the extinction of mind and body, the extinction of greed, hatred and delusion, the extinction of all mental defilements. But it doesn't mean nothingness. They have supreme bliss. Q. I've heard people say that it sometimes takes about 3 days before the soul completely leaves the body after death. Is that true? This is not the Buddhist point of view. After you die, you will be reborn right away. Q. But some people claim that the soul will stay around for a few days before it moves on. That's wrong? Do you mean their consciousness after they die? No, that's not correct. Some people might believe that after someone dies, the consciousness or soul of a person will stay around for a week or so before being reborn. But what actually happens is that the person was attached to their family or their property, and so they died and were reborn as a hungry ghost. Then, if we try to do meritorious things and transfer the merit of those good deeds to that ghost, he may receive that merit and be reborn in another existence. So even though people might think, "Oh, now he's moved on," he's actually gone from being a human being to a hungry ghost, and then from a hungry ghost to some other existence. Q. Does it matter if the body was cremated or buried? 124. Process freed. No, it doesn't matter. Q. I'd like to go back to an arahant question. When they're alive, I realize that their consciousness is dependent upon their body, but when they die, do they have to do anything consciously, or do they just go right to nibbana? They go right to nibbana. Their kuti, or death consciousness, ceases, and they enter nibbana. There's no consciousness anymore. The Buddha said that all conditioned things, mind and body, are suffering. If you still have mind and matter, then you still have suffering. Nibbana is no suffering. Q. So if the body dies and there's nothing that consciousness can condition anymore, then there's nothing? Right, nothing. Q. I heard there's a ceremony here tomorrow. What is happening tomorrow? Tomorrow is the Buddha's birthday, the day he gained enlightenment, and the day he passed away. We'll have a ceremony for this occasion from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. We'll also consecrate the Buddha statue. Any further questions? Q. I don't know if this is relevant, but I'm thinking about when land is being cleared to build something, even a monastery building. What about all the things that die? I'm wondering what the karma and effects are. It depends on your job, right? If you don't have the intention to kill, then it's no problem. It depends on your mind. It depends on your intention. It depends on your satana, intention or volition. When you walk from here to your car, you probably step on ants, right? And maybe they die. But you don't have the intention to step on them and kill them. Satana, or intention, is very important. Q. Because of all the rain last year, there are a lot of worms in the ground. I'm trying to put in a garden. And if I put my spade in the ground, I 125 Las Vegas Sayadaw sometimes accidentally cut a worm in half. I don't know what to do. It makes me not want to put in the garden. Just try to take care. Throw the dead worm away. Q. What about pests, like grasshoppers? They eat our vegetables. Is it bad karma to kill things like that? Yes, you shouldn't intend to kill them. If you accidentally kill them, then it's no problem. Q. But what about if they're eating our food? Or what about mosquitoes? When I was young, I used to kill mosquitoes. Sometimes, I'd try to kill them, but they'd just fly away. I'd get angry with them. But later on, I didn't try to kill them anymore. Actually, since I started to practice meditation, I've never intentionally killed any insects or ants. If a mosquito comes to bite me, I reflect on its desire to survive. It's trying to find food, just like we are. If he's already bitten me, I view it as a food offering of my blood and then blow it away from me. I feel very happy when I do that. In Pali, they call it jivitadana. It's like making a donation for life. If a mosquito bites you and you kill it, then it has to die. But if you just let it go, you can reflect on your good deed and feel happy. Someone might go to a clinic and donate a pint or two of blood, right? But a mosquito is taking just a little. So if we don't kill it and instead just let it fly away, then we can feel very happy. Oh, I made a life donation. Q. What about if they carry a disease? I'm talking about when we realize that a mosquito is biting us. When I realize it, I just let it go away. Not every mosquito will give you a disease, but we have to protect ourselves too. The quality of our mind is what's important. If we think, oh, welcome mosquito, then that's not right either. The place of ripening today is May 16th, 1998. Last week, we discussed by way of function, by order of ripening giving results, and by time of ripening giving 126 process-freed results. Today we're going to discuss with respect to the place in which effects take place, or by place of ripening. We have 4. 1. Immoral 2. Moral pertaining to the sense sphere 3. Moral pertaining to the form sphere 4. Moral pertaining to the formless sphere. We will discuss these one by one. It's very useful for everyone. Immoral this is unwholesome right? Is Satana, and Satana is right? We already studied this when we talked about mental factors. One of the mental factors is Satana, which we call volition. Satana associates with every type of consciousness. It's a universal mental factor, right? Shaitana/volition associating with unwholesome consciousness is called immoral Of the 12 types of unwholesome all but the last one, restlessness, produce rebirth in the woeful states. This means that if you do something via unwholesome consciousness, except for Satana/volition associated with restlessness, then this can produce rebirth in a woeful state. What about during one's present lifetime? Maybe you're a human being or an animal, a hungry ghost or a hell being. During that lifetime, this unwholesome will take effect as unwholesome resultant consciousness. This means that you will see, hear, smell, taste, or touch undesirable things during your lifetime. Actually, this applies to the sense sphere or the form sphere. These beings will have to experience akusala vipaka. That is, they will have to see, hear, smell, taste, or touch undesirable things as a result or consequence of their previous bad actions. So, this immoral can produce rebirth in the woeful states, and it can also give results as akusala vipaka in the human world, the celestial world, or in the form sphere during one's lifetime. We talked about 10 kinds of immoral when we studied unwholesome consciousness earlier. Today, we're going to look closely at 127 Las Vegas Sayadaw, these 10 kinds of We'll explore what their consequences are for this life and for the next life. We'll be studying this in detail. What are the 10 kinds of immoral 1. Killing 2. Stealing 3. Sexual misconduct 4. Lying 5. Slandering 6. Harsh speech 7. Vain talk 8. Covetousness 9. Ill will 10. False belief. These are the 10 immoral Killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct. These 3 are called bodily action. Why do we call them that? We call them that because they are generally committed through the door of the body. To kill, we typically use our physical body, right? These 3 kamas are generally committed through the door of the body. With respect to killing as an example, sometimes we don't use our physical body, but instead order someone else to kill that person. It's not bodily, right? It's verbal. But generally, killing is a bodily action. The same applies for stealing. We generally use our body to steal someone's property, but we might sometimes use our words to cheat someone out of something. So stealing might be verbal action, right? But, again, stealing is generally a bodily action. And the same applies for sexual misconduct, which is generally a bodily action. Lying, slandering, harsh speech, and vain talk, these 4, are verbal actions. They are generally committed through the door of speech. In other words, You use your verbal actions to lie, slander, say bad things, and talk in a way that is without benefit. This is how it mostly is. It's possible to lie without saying any words, right? We could lie using sign language. That's bodily action, right? But generally, lying is committed through the door of speech. 128 Process freed. As for harsh speech, bad words, perhaps we write it down rather than speak it. Maybe you write a mean letter. It's not verbal, right? It's physical. But generally, this too is committed via verbal action. The same applies for vain talk, such as when we express things that are not beneficial. It's typically done verbally, but we can also express vain things in writing. Writing is a physical action. So lying, slandering, harsh speech, and vain talk are generally committed through verbal action. Covetousness, ill will, and false belief are mental actions. They are done through the mind itself, without bodily or verbal intimation. These 10 kinds of immoral kama we've been talking about are committed through physical, verbal, or mental action. What's their root? How many roots do we have? Immoral kama has 3 roots, right? Attachment, hatred, and delusion. Immoral kama occurs because of these 3 roots. Among the 10 kinds of immoral kama, killing, harsh speech, and ill will, these 3 spring from the root of hatred. You might kill a person because you get mad, right? This is because of hatred. You might get angry and use harsh or bad words, right? The root is hatred, or dosa. Ill will is also hatred. So, killing, harsh speech, and ill will spring from the root of hatred. Sexual misconduct, covetousness, and false belief. These 3 spring from the root of attachment. Can you see this? What's the root of sexual misconduct? Generally, it's attachment. You're attached to the person. But sometimes you might get mad and commit sexual misconduct because of hatred, right? But generally, you do it because of attachment. What about covetousness? You want another person's property. Perhaps you want to take it unlawfully. This is attachment. As for false belief or wrong view, this is ditthi. We already studied ditthigata sampayutta when we talked about unwholesome consciousness earlier. This is attachment, right? This is not found in hatred or dosa, right? It's only found in lobha hamula chitta. So, wrong view, false belief, also springs from the root of attachment. The remaining 4, stealing, lying, slandering, and vain talk, arise from 2 roots. What are they? Lobha, attachment, or dosa, hatred. You can see that, right? Why might you steal someone's property? Maybe you're attached to their valuables, right? But maybe you steal because you want them to suffer. See how there are 2 possible roots. 129. Las Vegas Sayada. The same applies to lying. You may lie because you want to get something from someone, or perhaps because you want to hurt them. Can you see the 2 roots? Slandering, putting one person against another person, might happen because you want one of the people to like you more than the other person. Or perhaps you do it because you want to destroy their relationship. Attachment or hatred can be the cause or root. And the same also applies to vain talk, which can arise because of attachment or hatred. We've talked thus far about hatred and attachment. What about delusion? Whenever you commit any of these 10 kinds of immoral action, moha is always associated with that kama. Although we say that killing, harsh speech, and ill will spring from the root of hatred, we should know that it's actually hatred and delusion. Sexual misconduct, covetousness, and false belief spring from the root of attachment, but we should know that they also come from delusion. The remaining 4 types of immoral kama arise from 2 roots plus moha, so actually 3 roots. Moha is one kind of mental factor. It's a universal unwholesome mental factor. Whatever type of unwholesome consciousness arises, moha is always associated with it. Whenever we commit any of these kinds of kama, Moha root is always associated with it. Later on, we'll discuss how we chant Hetu Pasayo. Hetu means root, good or evil. Whatever we do, good or evil, depends on the 6 roots. Sometimes the things we do have an evil root, and sometimes they have a good root. This applies to everyone. So now we know about the 10 kinds of immoral kama and their roots. Now I'd like all of you to know what kind of retribution we will receive if we commit an act of killing. We should know this. It's useful in helping us make decisions in life. Just like a judge evaluates the factors involved in a case in order to determine guilt or punishment, we can look at the various factors involved in our own life situations. In order for us to have killed something, we have to fulfill 5 factors. We call these the constituent factors of killing. If we fulfill these 5 factors, we can say that we have killed. I would like you to take note of this and try to memorize it. I. The object must be a living being. If it's not living, maybe you try to kill what you think is an insect, but is actually an 130 process-freed inanimate object, then it's not killing. You can't kill something that's not alive, right? 2. There must be awareness of it being a living being. You must know that the being is alive. 2. The doer must have intent to kill. Sometimes you walk somewhere and accidentally step on an ant and it dies. Right? It's not killing if you didn't intend to kill it. IV. There must be the effort to kill. You can intend to kill but not act on that intention, right? There must be effort. V. This effort must result in the destruction of life. If the living being doesn't die, then we can't say it's killing. If any one of these 5 factors is lacking, then strictly speaking, we can't call it an act of killing. All 5 factors must be fulfilled for there to have been an act of killing. Let's say there's a living being, and that you know it's living but you don't intend to actually kill it. Maybe you just want to injure it, and so you crush or cut or shoot it, and it ends up dying. Is it an act of killing? No retribution depends upon these factors. If all 5 factors are fulfilled, then killing will give its result 100%, right? If you try to kill a living creature but it doesn't die, then we can't call it killing. But you made it suffer anyway, right? You will still face retribution, but not 100%. We've been talking about killing. If there's no intention or effort to kill, then there's no problem. This is very important. The main thing is the intention to kill. What about when we're eating? Sometimes there might be a living creature inside of a piece of fruit, right? You're just eating an apple. You didn't intend to eat the worm living inside of it, so we can't say we killed it. Water might have bacteria in it, right? By drinking water, are we killing the bacteria? No. If we get sick and go to the hospital, do we ask the doctor to give us a shot to kill the virus? There's no intention to kill a virus in our body, right? Does a doctor or a nurse declare, "I want to kill this virus," as they administer an injection? They're not intending to kill. The mind is very important. 131 Las Vegas Sayadaw. We monks will sometimes have temple boys or novices stay at the temple with us. They might come to the temple to learn and work. We might try to get them to learn to write or read, but they might not listen or obey. Instead, maybe they just want to play all the time. So what might we do in our tradition? We might use a stick and hit them with it to train them. What if we accidentally kill them in the process? If we didn't intend for them to die, then it's not killing. There's no sin in terms of killing them. According to Buddhist scripture, if we kill someone, then the killer is liable to be reborn in a woeful state, maybe as a hell being, an animal, or a hungry ghost. If that being returns to the human world later on, as a result of that previous karma from having killed, their lifespan will be short. Some people have short lifespans, right? Some die right after birth. Why? Why do the children of doctors, lawyers, rich people, or business people sometimes die so young? Because of the child's past karma, because they killed animals or other beings in a past life. Some people die immediately after birth, right? Some die in childhood, some die in accidents, maybe only 10 or 20 years old. Sometimes people get murdered. Or even if they don't die early, some people suffer terrible diseases their whole lives. Perhaps their heart isn't good, or they have something like blood cancer. These people have unhappy lives. This is the result of them having killed someone in a past life. So as a result, perhaps a person has a short lifespan, or perhaps they suffer terrible diseases in this life. What about if we avoid killing? We can make the decision, I won't kill any living being from now on for the rest of my life. As a result of not killing, the scriptures talk about this, you will be reborn pretty in the next life. Those who avoid killing will also be long-lived and have good health and popularity. They will enjoy the services of many good attendants and have lots of friends. They will have freedom from worry, no worry about family, business, or health. They will associate with loved ones. These are the results of not killing. But if you kill, you'll have a short life, right? And your face will be ugly, your health poor, and you'll have to disassociate with loved ones. As retribution for having killed, you will have to receive these results. See how it depends? You can see whether people are by themselves or surrounded by friends and family. We can think about the sort of karma that gave them, or us, these good or bad results. 132 Process freed. We've been talking about killing, right? Now we go to stealing. There are 5 constituent factors for the act of stealing. I. Property is in the possession of a certain person. It belongs to someone. If you see something but it doesn't belong to anyone, then you can take it. It's not stealing. 2. The cognition of its ownership by somebody. You recognize or realize that it belongs to someone. 2. The intent to steal or rob. You need intention to steal or rob. IV. Commission of thievery or robbery. It's not enough to just have intention. You still have to actually steal or rob. V. Successful removal of certain things or property. You have to move it. Even 1 degree of movement is stealing. These are the 5 factors. If any one of these is lacking, you cannot strictly call it stealing. So here, the important one is intention. If you see something and take it, but decide to return it, if someone tells you that it belongs to them, then it's not stealing. Or if you want to steal something but don't act on that wish, then it's not stealing. But if you move the property even just a little bit, even just 1 degree, then it's stealing. What will happen if we steal? After we die, we may go to a woeful state. And even if we eventually come to the human world again, we will be poor our whole lives as a result of having stolen in a past life. We will experience poverty, hunger, and misery in spite of our hard work. No matter how hard we work, we will never have enough. Some people work hard but never have enough. Right. This is what is meant by hunger or misery, in spite of hard work. We'll also be subject to economic ruin. Our business may fail. We may lose our money. Our property may be destroyed. This happens by means of 5 enemies. Do you know what these 5 enemies are? A. Bad kings, dictators or tyrants. A bad king takes your property by force, right? 133. Las Vegas Sayadaw. B. Thieves. A thief may come to rob or steal from you. C. Fire. Fire burns your house or your belongings. D. Water. Water could be a flood that destroys your money or property. E. Hateful heirs or offspring. In other words, you might have bad children who will destroy your property. Even if you have a good business, you may have children who use drugs like heroin that cause all sorts of economic problems for themselves, for you, and for your grandchildren. We call these the 5 enemies. Why do things like this happen to us? Because of our previous evil karma. Perhaps you stole or destroyed someone's property, and so now you have to experience these problems as retribution. What about if we avoid stealing? Do you want to know how that works? It's the opposite. You'll be rich, with no hunger or misery. Your business will be prosperous, and no enemies will destroy your property. Oh, I should mention 2 other parts of the retribution that comes with stealing. You will be of low social status, of low class, and experience hardship in daily life. Now we'll talk about those who commit sexual misconduct. As a result of such a misdeed, after he dies, this person might go to a woeful state and suffer there. Even if he returns to the human world again, he will have a lot of enemies wherever he goes. Additionally, he will not have a happy married life. This person might think, "My spouse is no good, I'll find another one." But even if he does, he still won't find happiness. Why? Because of his past sexual misconduct. Change of gender, from man to woman, is also a result or consequence of previous sexual misconduct. Another is having occasion to part from one who is beloved. If you have a girlfriend or boyfriend that you love, you'll have to be separated from them. You might have to work in a different country, in a different business, or work different hours from them. Or perhaps someone will take them from you. Other consequences include being short-tempered, or having fear or shyness. Some people are shy, right? Others are short-tempered. This is because they used to commit sexual misconduct. 134 Process freed. Now, go to lying. There are 4 constituent factors of the act of lying. This is very important for everyone. What one says does not accord with reality. In other words, it's not true. 2. The intent to deceive other people. Our intention would be to cheat them, right? 2. Describing falsehood as truth. You lead them to believe your falsehood to be true. The statement is accepted as truth by a person who hears it. If the person doesn't believe you, then it's not lying. Let's say someone comes to you and says, "I need $100 because I went to the casino last night and lost my money. Can you loan me $100? If you have $100 but say that you don't, is it lying? Strictly speaking, it may not be lying. For example, if the person who asked the question knew you had money and therefore didn't believe your claim that you didn't, then it's not lying. If the listener does not accept what you're saying, it's not lying. But it would be lying if the person believed you. We try to observe our 5 precepts, right? One of them is to not lie. So how might we handle our friend's request to borrow $100 from us if we have the money but don't want to loan it to them? You don't want to lie, nor do you want to just give them the money. Instead, you might say something like, "I don't have money that you can borrow." We should think about the way that we phrase things. A person who lies may be reborn in a woeful state after death. If he returns to the human world, he may experience one or more of 9 consequences of lying. A. Poor enunciation. It's not clear when he talks. B. Uneven teeth. C. Foul breath. D. An unhealthy complexion. E. Poor eyesight or hearing. You might have to use glasses, right? F. A defective personal appearance. 135 Las Vegas Sayadaw G. Lack of influence on others. This means that you might say something, but others won't believe or follow your words. Even your children won't listen to you. This is because of your lack of influence. H. Harshness of speech. This means that the way you talk is impolite. I. A flippant mind. This means that your mind is not stable. It wanders. These are the consequences of lying. How many are there? 9. Right? If you avoid lying and speak only the truth, then you will receive 14 consequences. Some of them may be experienced in this life, but most of them will be experienced in the next life. A. Having a fragrant mouth. When you talk, your mouth has a good smell. B. Having beautiful white teeth. This is an example of a consequence experienced in the next life. C. Having the power of speech that attracts. When you say something, people will listen to you and pay attention. On the other hand, if you are a liar, then people won't pay attention to what you say. If you tell the truth, people will consider you believable and listen to you. This is a consequence in this life. See how some of these can be consequences in this life, while others are consequences in the next life. D. Having the power of speech that is persuasive. You have the ability to reach compromises. E. Having a personality that delights other people. F. Having clear faculties. This is referring to our sensitivities of eye, ear, nose, tongue, and body. G. Having a mind composed and free from distraction. Especially when you sit in meditation, your mind stays easily concentrated. 136 Process freed H. Having a high IQ I. Having bravery. J. Having a well-proportioned body that is not too fat. Some people are 300 pounds, right? K. Not being too thin. L. Not being too short. Some might consider a person that is 2 or 3 feet tall as being too short, right? M. Not being too tall. N. Having the habit of speaking clearly and sweetly. These are the 14 good results. We receive these when we avoid lying and tell only the truth. It depends on our karma, right? Whether someone is tall, short, fat, or thin is a matter of their karma. How about slandering? Let's look at that now. You know what this is, right? It's speaking ill of someone in order to cause discord, hatred, or enmity amongst people where harmony or friendliness exists. In other words, if two people are good friends, but I say something that is designed to break up their friendship, then it is slandering. It's setting one person against another. As a result of slandering, after you die, you might go to hell or another woeful state. If you return to the human world, according to the evil action of slandering, you will be at odds with relatives and friends. This means that you won't get along with your friends and family members. If you avoid slandering, as a result, you will enjoy heavenly bliss. After you die, you will go to heaven, or you will return to the human world and have happy and harmonious relations with your friends and relatives. The consequences of slandering versus avoiding slandering are opposites. Right, now go to harsh speech. 137. Las Vegas Sayadaw. This means abusing, scolding, or cursing. We call these harsh speech. This kind of talk is very painful to the person who is subjected to it. As a result of harsh speech, after you die, you may go to a woeful state. If you return to the human world, you will be very often abused and scolded. The scriptures have a story about harsh speech. One day, a gentleman wanted to go somewhere with his friend. He went to his mother to ask permission to leave. He said, "Mom, I want to go with my friend." His mother didn't want him to leave. He replied, "I have to go." Then he walked away. His mother got angry, and as he left, she said, "You may be attacked and killed by a buffalo." The gentleman continued on his way. As the man and his friend walked through the jungle, they eventually encountered a charging buffalo. The man thought, "Oh, my mom said I might be attacked and killed by a buffalo." But when he thought about this, he realized that his mother had been upset but didn't want for such a thing to happen. He expressed this realization to the buffalo. The buffalo suddenly stopped and just stood there. In this story, the mother's statement that her son may be attacked and killed by a buffalo was not based upon a wish for it to happen. She may have said it, but it wasn't in her heart's desire. It was just harsh talk. It wasn't her desire for it to happen. Nowadays, we may sometimes need to use harsh speech when we talk to our friends or children. But these harsh statements may not be coming from anger. Instead, they may be coming from a place of worry or concern. So, if you don't have the wrong intention behind the harsh things you might say, we can't call it harsh speech. But if we get really angry and abuse and scold and curse at someone who is our enemy, "I hope you get killed," then that's harsh speech. How about vain talk? This is unbeneficial talk. It's not worthy of remembrance. It could be misrepresentation or fiction. 138 Process freed. If you use vain talk, as a result, people may not pay attention to what you say. Due to your lack of credibility, you may be disliked or disrespected by others. You will have a poor intellect and experience scanty gains in life. You'll never have enough. You will lack power and authority. This is retribution for vain talk. Now go to covetousness. As you know, this is the intention to possess another person's property unlawfully. And what about ill will? This is one kind of mental action. Here, it is the evil intent to bring about the death or destruction of a person. To want to destroy another person is ill will. What do we have to do about these kinds of thoughts? We have to remove them by changing them to thoughts of goodwill. In other words, convert ill will to goodwill. How do we do that? By cultivating loving kindness. Cultivate love and radiate your goodwill. Think, may all beings be free from danger. May all beings be free from mental suffering. May all beings be free from physical suffering. May all beings live happily. Just think like this, to convert ill will to loving kindness. So have metta, loving kindness, instead of ill will, and have no covetousness. The last immoral kama is false belief. This is wrong view, right? We need to understand this one. If we have wrong view as we practice meditation, we can't gain any jhana or enlightenment. In order to attain these, we must clear our view. We already talked a bit about wrong view last week, but I'd like to spend a few more minutes talking about different kinds. Everything has sprung without a cause. This type of person doesn't believe that anything has a cause. This is a view of non-causality. 2. Good and bad produce no effect. Even if you do good things or bad things, there's no effect. This is a view of the inefficacy of action. 2. There is no other life. After you die, there is nothing. There are people who believe this. It is wrong view. This is a nihilistic view. 139, Las Vegas Sayadaw IV, Eternalism. This means that after we die, we will be human gain. It means that our life and our ego are permanent. If we think this way, it is a wrong view called eternalism. 5. Annihilation. Do whatever you want to do because there's nothing that comes afterward. In other words, no rebirth. Self-illusion. This means egoistic wrong view about the 5 aggregates. It is belief in a permanent personality or bodily entity. You see me right now, right? In reality, who sees me? I consciousness sees. It's not a woman or a man seeing me. It's not a person or an individual. It is only I consciousness that sees. This is right view. Wrong view thinks that the ego sees. I see you with my eyes. Your eye cannot see. I consciousness sees. We should especially know that eternalism, annihilation, and self-illusion are based upon wrong view. In detail, we have 62 kinds of wrong view, but it's mainly about these 3 kinds. We have to understand this. This is why we are studying that which is real. We need to know that mind, matter, consciousness, mental factors, material properties, all realities, have their cause and their effect. We should know why they occur and what their consequences are. We should understand all of this. If we have wrong view of eternalism, annihilation, or self-illusion, we call it mikadithi, wrong view or false belief. We have these 10 kinds of unwholesome actions, right? Now let's go to the second place of ripening moral kama pertaining to the sense sphere. Moral kama, pertaining to the sense sphere. Moral kama here refers to the 8 types of beautiful sense sphere wholesome consciousness, right? The cetana, volition, that associates with this consciousness is called moral kama. This is kama pertaining to the sense sphere. It produces rebirth in the blissful kama plane. How many blissful planes do we have? 7, right? They include the human world and the celestial worlds. These are called the blissful 140 process-freed sense sphere plane. So this kama is wholesome kama that produces rebirth in the blissful sense sphere plane. During this lifetime, it will give results as ahetuka, wholesome resultant consciousness. You will meet experiences with desirable objects. You'll see good things, hear good sounds, and have good smells, good tastes, and good touches. These are the results of your wholesome kama during your lifetime. Also, great resultant consciousness arises as a result in the sense sphere. In the celestial or human worlds, if we do wholesome moral kama pertaining to the sense sphere, As a result, we will be reborn in the blissful sense sphere plane, the human or celestial worlds. During our lifetime, we will experience ahetuka kusala vipaka, all good objects, right? All desirable objects. We studied the 10 types of immoral kama, but what about the different types of moral kama? We have 10 of these too. We talked about them previously, but now I'd like to discuss them in more detail for you. 1. Generosity 2, Morality 3, Meditation 4, Reverence 5, Service 6, Transference of Merit 7, Rejoicing in Others' Merit 8, Hearing the Doctrine 9, Teaching the Doctrine 10, Straightening One's View. These 10 types of moral kama can be briefly composed as threefold: generosity, morality, and meditation. Let's look more closely at reverence and service. Reverence is paying respect or honoring. Service is doing something good for the welfare of others, perhaps religion, a school, a hospital, society, for good friends, or perhaps for meditators. Reverence and say, RVICE, can be considered a part of morality. Transference of merit and rejoicing in others' merit can be considered a part of generosity. Transference of merit means that we wish to share the merit of our deeds with all human beings. It's giving. Rejoicing is also an act of generosity. 141 Las Vegas Sayadaw. The last three, hearing the doctrine, teaching the doctrine, and straightening one's view, can be considered part of meditation. Like us today, we've come here to study, to hear the doctrine, to teach the doctrine, and to straighten our view. This is a form of meditation. So, briefly, in Pali we call it dana, generosity, sila, morality, and bhavana, meditation. These are very important. If we lack even one of these, we cannot reach our goal, our destination. The Buddha said that we need to develop and cultivate these three things every day. That is, we should do dana, sila, and bhavana every day. Why? Because it's moral kama. As Buddhists, our ultimate goal is nibbana, or liberation. We are trying to escape from all kinds of suffering. In order to do so, we have to fulfill three things: generosity, morality, and meditation. Here's a useful simile. Generosity is like a bundle of provisions for a journey. Morality is like our legs, and meditation is like our eyes. Try to remember these three, because they're very important. Let's say we need to walk somewhere on a long journey. If our legs are very strong and our eyes are very good, but we have no provisions, no food, and no money, we can't reach our destination. Why? Because of a lack of food, right? So it's crucial that we prepare our provisions for the journey. Even if we have money and food and all the necessary provisions, if our legs aren't strong, we won't reach our destination. And even if we carry many bundles of provisions and have good, strong legs, if we have poor eyesight, we might stumble and fall down or lose our way. We won't reach our destination. We need all three of these things. In the same way, in order to gain enlightenment, in other words, to reach our ultimate goal of supreme bliss, we need to fulfill dana, generosity, sila, morality, and bhavana, meditation. Why do we need provisions? Generosity is like food. If you have generosity in this life, then if you are reborn again, it will be in a rich family. As you are reborn in a rich family, you'll have the things you need to prosper. You'll have an opportunity to receive a good education and learn. You won't have to worry about your business. Because of this well-being, you can go to temples or meditation centers to practice meditation. You won't have to worry about finding food. But someone 142 process-freed who is very poor is too busy trying to find food to have time to practice meditation. They are too busy working hard to satisfy their basic needs. See? All of you have been coming here to study with me. If you were too busy working and didn't have the means to come here, it means you're too poor. But we have enough, right? As such, we have this good opportunity. Even if you're a rich person now, though, if you just had generosity but didn't have morality, the 5 precepts, in the prior life, you're still in a bad situation. Let's say you used to break the first precept, killing. Sure, because of your generosity you were reborn in a rich family, but because of your killing, you may die young. If you don't die young, then you might have a terrible disease. Maybe you can't walk or speak, or maybe you become disabled. As such, you may not have a chance to practice meditation. Why is this? You become rich because of your past generosity, but end up having a short life because of your past killing. And even if you have a long life, you are beset with terrible diseases that interfere with your ability to do things like practice meditation. Because of your past lack of morality, you might become blind, deaf, or mute. If you used to break the second precept, stealing, in the previous life, you'll be very poor in the next life. You won't have a chance to go to the temple to practice meditation or study because you're too busy working. You'll have no chance to practice. If you used to break the third precept, sexual misconduct, your rebirth consciousness might be Santirana, investigating, consciousness accompanied by indifference. It is the same type of rebirth consciousness shared by those who are born deaf, mute, or blind. Their rebirth consciousness is ahetuka, rootless, investigating consciousness, right? It is accompanied by indifference. Because of that, they can't gain enlightenment. This is the result of their past lack of morality. If you used to break the fourth precept, lying, you may suffer from some sort of disability that will impede your opportunities to practice meditation. What about the fifth precept? This is drinking alcohol, or using drugs, or other intoxicants. After this person dies, he may be reborn in hell, or another woeful state. Or he may return to the human world. In that case, please take note of the consequences in successive existences for those who violate the fifth precept and drink to excess. 143. Las Vegas Sayadaw 1. Being divorced from reality. This person doesn't know whether something's good or bad, appropriate or inappropriate, suitable or unsuitable. They don't have the mind to consider these things. 2. Laziness. This person is very lazy. 2. Forgetfulness. They can't remember anything. IV. Being ungrateful to one's benefactors. They have a lack of gratitude for their parents, teachers, or good friends. 5. Not being ashamed or afraid of being immoral. They do evil things without shame or fear. 5. Insanity. There might be a mental or brain disorder. Why? From drinking too much in their previous life. Vismaiv. Fortune too brood. Sheshal. A propensity for evil. His mind does evil very easily. It bends toward doing bad things. See? A person with this moral baggage can't gain enlightenment. This is why, if we only have generosity but lack morality, we won't reach our destination, our ultimate goal, nibbana. There is no way to gain enlightenment. So now, let's say you have generosity and you observe your precepts. In other words, you have good provisions and good legs, but you lack meditation, eyes. Provisions and legs alone won't get you to your destination. You also need meditation, which is wisdom. You need the wisdom eye. When we practice meditation, we understand realities. We understand what they truly are. We need to have good eyes, the wisdom eye. These good eyes support us to gain enlightenment. We need to develop and improve our generosity, observe good conduct, and practice meditation every day. As we improve and increase in time, we can reach our destination. Now we know about moral karma pertaining to the sense sphere. 144. Process freed. We have 4 classes of moral karma here. This is also very important. 1. Tihetuka ukata. This means the highest moral karma, or superior moral karma. When we do something meritorious, there are 10 kinds of moral karma. It should be tihetuka, 3 good roots, and of the highest, superior level. Ti means 3, and hetuka means root, so 3 roots. 3 good roots, right? Here, what are the 3 good roots? Non-attachment, alobha, non-hatred, adosa, and non-delusion, amoha. I will use an example to help you understand what I'm saying. You do the first type of moral karma, generosity, with 3 good roots. You're not attached to your property or your contribution, right? Non-attachment is 1 root. Also, there's no hatred. This means loving kindness. Because you have loving kindness, you want to help and support people. And there's non-delusion, which means that you know that you're doing a good thing. It means that you believe in the law of karma, that when we do good things, there will be good results. Understanding this law is non-delusion, or wisdom. If you practice generosity with 3 good roots, this is the highest moral karma. Superior moral karma also means that it is attendant with good causes before and after you do something. This means that wholesome consciousness arises before and after you make the donation. In other words, there's no repentance afterward about what you've done. You feel very happy because there was no argument or other problem or concern about making the donation. If you want to make a donation but your family doesn't agree with your decision, perhaps there will be an argument about it. You will feel unhappy, thus there is unwholesome consciousness. But if you don't argue or feel unhappy, there is no unwholesome consciousness. So here, highest moral karma means that there is no problem, no argument, or unwholesome consciousness. No unwholesome consciousness before or after the act means that it was attendant with good causes. There is only wholesome consciousness that arises. In the example I just gave, your family agrees with your wholesome decision, and so you feel happy about making the donation. Afterward, you think about it and feel very happy. This is highest moral karma. 145 Las Vegas Sayadaw. What about doing one of the other 10 kinds of moral karma? Perhaps practicing morality, meditation, practicing reverence, or providing a service. When you do these, they should be attendant with good causes before and after. This is very important. So regarding the first one, with 3 good roots, this highest moral karma produces rebirth with 3 roots. As such, your rebirth in the next life will be accompanied by 3 roots. Among the 8 types of great resultant consciousness, your rebirth consciousness will be one of the 4 types that are with knowledge, or jnana sampayutta. With these 3 good roots, if you practice meditation in the next life, then you can become enlightened. You can become a noble person. Even if you don't gain enlightenment in this life, you definitely can in the next life, because your relinking or rebirth consciousness was accompanied by 3 roots. When we do something meritorious, it should be this first type, with 3 good roots and highest moral karma. Be careful about this. During our lifetime, it will give results as the 8 ahetuka, right? With this good resultant consciousness, you will see good things, hear good things, smell good things, taste good things, and touch good things, all desirable objects. And then there will be great resultant consciousness. 2. Tihetuka omaka. Omaka means inferior karma. Inferior karma means that when you do something meritorious, it is attendant with bad causes before or after. Maybe you have an argument, you get angry, before or after, as in the example I just gave. We call this inferior karma. 3. Dvihetuka ukata. Here you have 2 good roots, non-attachment and non-hatred. Ukata again means highest moral karma. When you do something meritorious, there's no wisdom here. In other words, you don't believe in the law of cause and effect. Instead, you just follow along with whatever someone else led or induced you to do. Make a donation. Okay, but you don't understand the karma. We're talking about 2 good roots, right? You have a good heart. You're not attached to your property. And you have highest moral karma. Before and after, no problems. No unwholesome consciousness arises. 146. Process freed. The second type, 3 good roots but inferior karma. And the third type, 2 good roots and highest moral karma, produce rebirth with 2 roots. Even though the second type has 3 good roots, because of its inferior karma, unwholesome consciousness arises before or after the meritorious deed. As a result, rebirth will be with two roots. It will be jnana vipayuta, or without knowledge. And since your rebirth consciousness will be without knowledge, you cannot gain enlightenment in the next life. Why? Because of the seed, you have only two roots. Without wisdom, you can't gain enlightenment. Whatever you do, be careful. Don't allow unwholesome consciousness to arise before or after you do something meritorious. It will give results during this lifetime because you have good karma. As ahetuka, you will have desirable objects, good seeing, good hearing, good smelling, tasting, touching, and so on, during your lifetime. But your rebirth consciousness will be with only two roots. 4. Dvihetuka omake. Here, you have two good roots. When you do something meritorious, there is non-attachment and non-hatred. But there's also inferior karma. This means that perhaps you kill some living creature, as an example, before you do a meritorious thing. Perhaps you'd like to offer food to the monks, and so you kill a fish and then donate it to them. This is inferior karma. Or perhaps you did some other unwholesome thing before your meritorious deed, and then you felt bad about it afterward. You might have a feeling of repentance connected to your donation. See? Before or after your meritorious deed, there was unwholesome consciousness. As such, your meritorious deed was not pure, and is therefore called inferior moral karma. As a result, it produces rebirth without a root, as kusala vipaka ahetuka santirana. You will be reborn as a human being, that is, perhaps, blind, deaf, or mute. Why? You were reborn as a human because of your good karma, but you have these disabilities because of this inferior karma. We can come up with many examples for how this might manifest. Someone might be very rich but disabled, right? This is because of dvihetuka, two good roots, and inferior karma. We should understand this. We've been talking about moral karma, pertaining to the sense sphere. 147 Las Vegas Sayadaw moral karma, pertaining to the form sphere. With regard to moral karma, pertaining to the sense sphere, how many actions are there? With generosity, you offer something physically. With morality, trying to observe precepts, you restrain your bodily and verbal actions, and with meditation, perhaps you recite the virtues of the Buddha. There is verbal action. Or perhaps you say nothing but just close your eyes and concentrate your mind. This is mental action, right? What about reverence, or paying respect to someone? This is bodily action. Service? This could be bodily or verbal action. When there is transference of merit, we say that we want to share the merit of our good deeds with all living beings. There is verbal action, with rejoicing in the merit of others. We're very happy about what someone else has done, and say, sadhu. This is verbal action. Or if you're just happy in your mind, then it's mental action. What about hearing the doctrine? That's mental action. Teaching the doctrine, verbal action. Straightening one's views? Trying to study and have right thoughts can be done through bodily, verbal, or mental action. It's the same thing with immoral karma, right? As for moral karma pertaining to the form sphere, it's purely mental action. We're talking about jhana, right? You can't say or do anything because you're concentrating your mind. It's a purely mental action caused by meditation. Doing things like making donations won't lead to a rebirth in the Brahma world, as this is reached only by meditation, a mental action. Moral karma pertaining to the formless sphere. As for moral karma pertaining to the formless sphere, this is also a sphere reached by purely mental action, as it is caused by meditation. You can't reach the Brahma world through generosity or morality, right? Those types of action can lead to rebirth in the human or celestial worlds. But the Brahma world, the form or formless spheres, are gained through meditation, which is a mental action. You understand this, right? Today, we've been talking about the 4 types of action, or in detail, the 16 kinds of action, or karma. When we do meritorious things, we have 148 process-freed the 4 classes of moral karma, right? We have superior moral karma, inferior karma, and so on. If we reflect on these matters in detail, we can know for ourselves what types of karma ourselves and others are making. I would like all of you to fulfill your generosity, your morality, and your wisdom or meditation. I would like you to gain your spiritual goal, Nibbana. Thank you. Any questions? Q. If I have engaged in most of the forms of unwholesome action over the course of my life, what can I do to get out of going to the woeful states? Try to practice meditation. When you gain the first stage of enlightenment, the door to the woeful states closes. You will never again have to be reborn in the woeful states. That's why we have to practice meditation. Only meditation can close the door to the woeful states. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Today is the 23rd of May, 1998. Last week we studied karma, right? We've studied the 31 planes of existence, the 4 kinds of rebirth consciousness, the 4 kinds, or 16 kinds in detail, of action. Today I would like to explain to you about individuals. That is, after one person dies, what plane he can be reborn in. We'll talk about this in detail. We already know about the 31 planes of existence. And we know the 4 kinds of individuals, right? We have ahetuka persons, vihetuka persons, tihetuka persons, and also noble Aryans. After each of these persons dies, what plane can he be reborn into? We will look at this in detail. We have kuti, which means death consciousness, followed by patisandhi, which means relinking, or rebirth consciousness. After kuti arises and ceases, what kind of patisandhi follows? I'm talking now about putujana, or ordinary worldlings who have not gained enlightenment yet. We have this present bhumi, which means plane. We have 31 planes, right? There will be kutisita, death consciousness, and then rebirth in a new bhumi, or plane. When reborn in a new plane, what is the individual's patisandhi chitta? If you understand one of these explanations, you will understand the rest. It's not difficult. 149 Las Vegas Sayadaw Puthujana. So now let's start from 31. 31 is the topmost plane. It is the 4th Arupavakara, where beings have only mind, no matter. For Puthujana, after they pass away from Neva Sanyana Sanyatana, the topmost plane, their kutitita is the 4th one, which is Neva Sanyana Sanyatana Vipaka. This is resultant consciousness, right? For their new bhumi, they can be reborn in the 5th through the 11th. What does this mean? We have the 4 woeful states, right? The 5th plane is the human world, so the 5th through 11th bhumi include the human and celestial worlds. So after they die, a Puthujana in Nevasanyana Sanyayatana can be reborn in the human or celestial worlds. He can also be reborn in the topmost plane again. This means that this person can be reborn in Nevasanyana Sanyana Sanyayatana, the human world, or the celestial worlds. When this person is reborn in the Nevasanyana Sanyana Sanyana plane, their patisandhi chitta relinking consciousness should be the 4th Arupa Vipaka, or Nevasanyana Sanyana 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 resultant consciousness. This is their rebirth consciousness. With 3-root Kamavakara Vipaka, their relinking consciousness upon rebirth in the human or celestial worlds would be the 4 types that are Jnanasampayutta. They're a Tihetuka person, right? This is the Patisandhi Sita for 3-root Puthujana. Now let's look at the 30th plane, the 3rd Arupavakara, or Akinchanyayatanupaga. Where can worldlings who pass away from this plane be reborn? They can be reborn in the 5th through the 11th, which are the human and celestial realms. They can also be reborn in the same TH street plane, the 30, as well as the 31, or Neva Sanya Nasanyayatana. They can go up, right? But they cannot be reborn in a lower Arupa realm, only the same or higher. You understand that, right? After you understand 3-root Kamavakara Vipaka for the 31st plane, you'll see that it's the same here. For the 3rd Arupa Vipaka, if they are reborn in the same plane, then their relinking consciousness should be the 3rd Arupa Vipaka. If it's the 4th, then it should be Nevasanyana Sanyayatana Vipaka, right? If they are reborn in the human or celestial realms, It should be 3-root Kamavakara Vipaka. Their rebirth consciousness is with knowledge. 150 process freed for the second Arupavakara, or Vinyananyanyanyatana. After a Puthujjana dies, he can be reborn in the 5th through the 11th planes, or the same plane up to the 31st plane. What does this last part mean? It means he can be reborn in the 29th, 30th, or 31 planes. He can go up, but not to a lower street Arupa plane. His Patisandhi would be the 2nd through the 4th Arupa Vipaka rebirth consciousness, or the aforementioned 4 types of 3-root Kamavakara Vipaka. Saint for the 1 Arupavakara, or Akasananchayatana. After dying, he can be reborn in either the 5th through 11th planes, the human and celestial worlds, or the 28th through the 31st planes. Again, the same plane or Saint Th upper planes. Their rebirth consciousness can be the 1 through the 4 Arupa Vipaka, and in the case of 3-root Kamavakara Vipaka, it will be with knowledge. We've been talking about Arupa Vakara. Now let's talk about the pure abodes, of which there are 5. Only Anagami and Arahants can live in these planes. These pure abodes do not apply to this part of the discussion. Why? There are no Puthujjana or worldlings, only non-returners and Arahants. Thus far we've only been talking about Puthujjana, right? That's why the pure abodes do not apply here. So now we'll go to the 22nd plane, or Asanyasata. This is the realm of mindless beings, where this is matter only. Their Kutakita is not mind, not consciousness. There is matter only. After they die from Asanyasata, this person can be reborn in the 5th through the 11th planes only. In other words, they can be reborn only in the human and celestial worlds. Their rebirth consciousness will be one of the 8 types of Kamavakara Vipaka. Saint for the 21 plane, or Vihafala. A worldling who dies from this plane can be reborn in the 5th through the 31st planes. From a human being up to the topmost plane, he can be reborn in any, not the woeful states though. He cannot be reborn there directly. This being's rebirth consciousness should be either 2-root or 3-root Kamavakara Vipaka, or perhaps one of the 5 types of Rupavakara Vipaka, or the 4 types of Arupavakara Vipaka. Any of these are possible. 151 Las Vegas Sayadaw. For the 20th plane, or Subhakina, a worldling who passes from here can also be reborn in the 5th through the 31st planes. It's the same, right? And the same applies for the 19th plane, Apamana Subha, the 18th plane, Paritta Subha, the 17th plane, Afasara, the 16th plane, Apamanabha, the 15th plane, Parittabha, the 14th plane, Mahabrahma, the 13th plane, Brahma Purohita, and the 12th plane, Brahma Parasaja. It's the same for all of these planes, right? We are talking about ordinary worldling beings who pass away from these various Brahma worlds. They can be reborn in the human world, the celestial worlds, or any of the Brahma worlds. In other words, the 5th through the 31st planes, but not the 4 woeful states. Now, go to the 11th plane, which is Puranimita Vasavati. This is the highest of the 6 celestial worlds. A being who passes away from this street th realm could be reborn in the 1 through the 11 planes. This means they can be reborn in hell. They can go from being a celestial angel or god and be reborn directly in hell. This being's rebirth consciousness could be one of the 2 types of Ahetuka Santirana Upeka, right? They could be reborn as a hell being, or perhaps an animal, a hungry ghost, an asura, or maybe a deaf or blind person. The rebirth consciousness could also be 2-root or 3-root Kamavakara Vipaka. This concerns rebirth from heaven for Puthujjana only. That's who we're talking about now. After their lifespan ends, they generally come down. Depending on their karma, they may come down to a lower celestial realm, or perhaps the human realm, or even hell. This is because they still have mental defilement, right? They still have attachment, hatred, and delusion. Next, let's talk about the 10th plane, which is Nimanarati. It's the same, street th, right? They can be reborn in the 1 through the 11 planes. The same applies for the 9th plane, Tusita, the 8th plane, Yama, and the 7th plane, Tavatimsa. This means that beings passing away from these celestial realms can be reborn as celestial beings again, or perhaps as human beings, or even beings in the woeful states. It depends on their karma. Now, go to the 6th plane, which is Kata Maharajika. It's the same. They street th can be reborn in the 1 through the 11 planes. 152 process freed. What about the 5th plane, the human realm, or Manusa? An ordinary worldling human being who hasn't gained enlightenment can be reborn in the 1st through the 11th planes. See? It's the same as with celestial beings. He can go to hell or be reborn as an animal or a hungry ghost. Then again, he could also be reborn as a human being or a celestial being. These are all possible. Let's talk now about Asurakaya, Petaloka, Tirachana Yoni, and Niraya. These are the 4 woeful states. For these beings, rebirth can also take street th place in the 1 through the 11 planes. After an animal passes away, for example, it can be reborn as a human being, or perhaps go to one of the celestial realms. See, human beings and animals have the same chance. An animal doesn't die and necessarily go to the animal plane again. An animal can even be reborn as an angel. We've already talked about their death consciousness and their rebirth consciousness. Aryans. Now we go to Aryans. We'll be talking about Kuti followed by Patisandhi for Aryans, those beings who gain enlightenment and become stream enterers, once returners, non-returners, or arahants. Once again, let's start with the 4th Arupavakara, or Neva Sanyana Sanyayatana. Aryans, or noble persons, who pass away from this plane, can only be reborn in the same plane. That is the most excellent plane. Beings here cannot move to other planes in rebirth, only the same plane. Maybe they gain final enlightenment in this life. Or maybe they gain enlightenment again. Maybe they go from a stream enterer to a once returner, or a non-returner, or perhaps even an arahant. No rebirth street then, right? That's why there's only one plane for them, the 31 plane. Do you understand that? Aryans who pass away from the Neva Sanyana Sanyatana plane, the topmost plane, can only be reborn in the same plane, if they must be reborn. If they become an arahant, they enter Nibbana. There is no rebirth. For the 3rd Arupavakara, or Akinkanyatanupaga, Aryans who pass away from this plane can be reborn in the 30th and 31 planes. They can street 153 Las Vegas Sayadaw be reborn in the 30th because that's already their plane. Similarly, they can be reborn in the same plane or in a higher plane. They won't ever be reborn in a lower plane. As for their rebirth consciousness, if they are reborn in the 3rd Arupavakara, then it should be the 3rd Arupavipaka. If it's the upper plane, then it should be the 4th Arupavipaka. For the 2nd Arupavakara, or Vijnanankayatana, after they pass away, they can be reborn in the 29th through 31st planes. This means the same plane, the 30th plane or the 31 plane. Their rebirth consciousness should street be the 2nd through the 4th Arupavipaka. Saint for the 1 Arupavakara, or Akasananke-tana, Aryans who pass away from this world can be reborn in the 28th through the 31st planes. Again, the same plane, or upper planes. We've been talking about Arupa Aryas. Now let's look at the 27th plane, which is called Akanitha. We have the 5 pure abodes, right? This is the 5th Rupa Vipaka. Their death consciousness is none. What does this mean? These beings are special. Only anagamas and arahants can live here. After an arahant dies here, there is no rebirth. As for anagamas living here, there is only that one life. An anagami will practice meditation and then gain the 4th stage of enlightenment and become an arahant. After they die, there is no rebirth consciousness. This is why we call this plane an excellent plane. There is no rebirth consciousness. There is no rebirth. It is a special plane. The 26th plane is called Sudasi. We don't have to think about arahants because there's no rebirth for them. As for anagamists living here, when they pass away, they will not be reborn in the same plane. An anagami living in the pure abodes will not be reborn in the same plane. If they gain arahants, they won't be reborn at all. But if they don't gain arahants, then they will be reborn in the upper plane. This is special. Again, with regard to the pure abodes, these beings will not be reborn in the same plane. That's why anagamis dying in Sudasi will be reborn in the 27th plane, Akanitha. 154 process freed. The 25th plane is Sudasa. Beings dying in this plane can be reborn in either the 26th plane or the 27th plane. In other words, they can only be reborn in Sudasi or Akanitha. They could go to either one. As for the 24th plane, Atapa, Aryans dying here can be reborn in the 25th through 27th planes. Only these three planes are possible. For Aviha, which is the 23rd plane, beings dying here can be reborn in the 24th through the 27th planes. See? Not the same plane, only upper planes. This is a special quality of the pure abodes. What about Asanyasata, the 22nd plane? This plane does not apply to this discussion. We're talking about Aryas, right? These are noble persons. The mindless beings inhabiting Asanyasata can only be Puthujana, which is why the 22nd plane doesn't apply here. Saint as for the 21 plane, called Vihaphala, it is a special plane. This is an excellent plane. We have three excellent planes, Vihaphala, Akanitha, and Nevasanyana, Asanyanyayatana. In these three excellent planes, Aryans cannot be reborn in another plane. Instead, they will remain on that plane and eventually attain the final stage of enlightenment. So if a being dying in this plane must be reborn again, it will take place in the same plane. In other words, an Aryan passing away from Vihaphala cannot be reborn elsewhere. If they do not attain Arahant Street before death, they will be reborn in this 21 plane. This is a special plane. The 20th plane is Subhakinena. Aryans who pass away from this plane can be reborn in the 20th or 21 planes, or the 23 stone RD through 31st planes. They cannot be reborn in the 22nd plane. Why not? This is because Subhakina Aryans can't be reborn as mindless beings. Only worldlings can be reborn in Asanyasata, no Aryans. So, beings reborn from Subhakina may return to Subhakina or go to Vihaphala, the pure abodes, or maybe Arupavakara. Understand? The same principle applies to the 19th plane, Apamanasubha, where Aryans dying can be reborn in the 19th through 21st planes, or the 23rd through 31st planes. They cannot be reborn in Asanyasata. 155 Las Vegas Sayadaw. In the same way, those passing away from the 18th plane, Paritasubha, can be reborn in the 18th through the 21st planes or the 23rd through the 31st planes, not in the 22nd plane. The principle continues. For the 17th plane, which is Aphasara, they can be reborn in the TH Street RD Street, 17 through the 21 planes, or the 23 through the 31 planes. And beings dying in Apamanabha, the 16th plane, can be reborn in the 16th through the 21st planes, or the 23rd through the 31 planes. They can be street reborn in any of these planes, but not the plane of mindless beings. It's the same for the remaining Brahma realms, Bharatabha, Mahabrahma, Brahma Purohita, and Brahma Parisajya. After they die, they can be reborn in the same plane or any higher plane, except the 22nd plane. Let's talk now about the 11th plane. It is called Paranimita Vasavati. This is a celestial realm. Aryans passing away from this realm can be reborn in the 5th through the 31st realms, except for the 22nd. What's the 5th plane? It's the human world, right? The same applies to Aryans passing away from the other celestial realms: Nimamanarati, Tusita, Yama, Tavatimsa, and Katumaharajika. They can be reborn in the 5th through the 31st planes, except for the 22nd plane. Please let me clarify a few things about these Aryans. Aryans includes stream enterers, once returners, non-returners, and arahants, right? Arahants are never reborn in any plane. Non-returners will not be reborn in the human or celestial worlds. After they die, they will be reborn in the Brahma worlds. Stream enterers and once returners can be reborn in the human and celestial worlds. For once returners, though, they can only return to any of these realms one time. As for stream enterers, they will have no more than 7 additional lives in the human or celestial worlds. They might have fewer than that, but not more than 7. So, after a being gains the first stage of enlightenment, if he must be reborn again, it will not be more than 7 more times in these planes. After 7 lives, he will either attain arahantship or be reborn in the Brahma worlds. Now let's talk about Manusa. This is the human world. Aryans who pass away from the human world can be reborn in the 5th through the 21st planes or the 23rd through the 31st planes. It's the same as we've been 156 process-freed seeing, right? There are no longer any woeful states for Aryans. That door is closed. Finally, let's talk about Asurakaya, about all of the woeful states, actually. They do not apply to this discussion. Why? Because no noble persons can be reborn in the woeful states. So we've been talking about which planes individuals can be reborn in after they die. Next, we'll go to the last group, which is very important, 157,